Okay, so you want to own a private jet company, buy a fleet of planes, charge rich people a fortune to skip the airport line, print money. Sounds simple. But here's the strange part. The company that just needed a $500 million bailout to avoid bankruptcy had $1.5 billion in annual revenue, and the man who built the largest private jet empire in the world spent 11 straight years losing money before he figured it out. Anyway, by the end of this video, you will know exactly how private jet companies actually make money, why this business keeps destroying well-funded operators who should know better, what the smartest players in the industry figured out that everyone else missed, and whether the numbers actually work. Private jet companies come in 3 flavors, and like casinos, they are 3 completely different businesses. The first is the charter broker. You own no planes at all. You are a middleman, connecting clients with aircraft operators and taking a margin on each booking. Entry cost is basically a desk, a phone, and an industry contact list. Some brokers run at 10 to 15% margins on bookings. Air Charter Service, one of the biggest in the world, posted revenues of $1.34 billion in 2025. That is a serious business built without owning a single aircraft. The second is the owner-operator. You buy or lease jets, hire crews, get your FAA Part 135 certificate, and fly paying clients directly. A small fleet of 3 or 4 light jets, think Cessna Citation or Embraer Phenom, will run you $10 to $15 million in aircraft alone. Add crew training, maintenance programs, insurance, hangar fees, and you are looking at $3 to $5 million in annual fixed costs before a single flight. The third is the fractional operator. This is the business model that changed everything. NetJets invented it in 1986. Instead of owning a whole jet or booking one-off charters, customers buy a share of an aircraft. 1/16 of a Gulfstream G650, for example, represents about 50 flight hours a year. That share costs roughly $2 to $3 million up front, plus a monthly management fee of around $20,000 and an hourly rate every time you fly. NetJets today operates a fleet of over 800 aircraft, flies more than 700,000 passengers a year, and is owned by Berkshire Hathaway. Warren Buffett bought it in 1998 for $725 million, and then promptly spent the next 11 years losing money on it. Here's the thing nobody tells you about this business. The product sounds like luxury travel. The economics are actually more like airlines, but the margins are worse, and the capital requirements are higher. Take a single Gulfstream G650. Purchase price, new, $75 million. Pre-owned, you're looking at around $40 million. Annual fixed costs, crew salaries, hangar, insurance, training, are around $1.1 million a year, whether the plane flies or not. Variable costs run about $5,200 per flight hour once you factor in fuel, maintenance reserves, and engine overhaul programs. A Rolls-Royce engine overhaul alone costs $1.25 million every 8,000 hours. Fly that aircraft 400 hours a year, and your total annual operating cost is roughly $3.3 million. On the charter market, a G650 goes for about $12,000 to $16,000 an hour. So 400 hours of flying looks like $5 to $6 million in revenue, maybe $2 million in gross profit on one aircraft. Except here's what the math does not show you. Private jets spend about 95% of their time sitting on the ground. The average owner flies somewhere between 200 and 400 hours a year. The moment utilization drops, those fixed costs do not move, and your revenue evaporates. You are still paying 2 pilots $180,000 combined, whether the jet flew 400 hours or 12. The hangar bill does not care. The insurance does not care. This is the engine that powers the entire charter industry. Owners who cannot absorb those fixed costs put their jets into charter management programs to generate offsetting revenue. The management company takes 20 to 30% of charter income, handles all operations, and the owner gets a check that sometimes, if they are lucky, covers their fixed costs. Often it does not. Here is what most people completely miss about this business. The money is not in the flight hours, it's in the float. When a fractional ownership customer like NetJets buys a share, they pay up front. When a jet card customer pre-purchases 25 hours at $7,500 an hour, that is $187,500 sitting on the operator's books before a single wheel leaves the runway. The company is holding your money, sometimes for months before you use it, and earning a return on it the entire time. At any given moment, the largest operators are sitting on hundreds of millions in pre-purchased flight credits. This is the same mechanism that makes cemetery pre-need contracts so powerful, and it is the same kind of float used in insurance. You've paid. They haven't had to deliver yet. That gap, multiplied across thousands of clients, is where the real financial engineering happens. NetJet's parent Berkshire Hathaway reported aviation services revenue of $20.7 billion across its service group in 2024. The aviation segment posted earnings growth of 9.1% year over year, fueled by more aircraft in fractional programs and more flight hours. It is one of the most powerful demand machines in consumer finance, quietly humming along while nobody talks about it. Private aviation has the most extreme version of the whale dynamic of any consumer business. The top 0.1% of private jet users, ultra-high net worth individuals flying 400 or more hours a year, generate a disproportionate share of total industry revenue. These are clients spending $1 to $5 million a year on aviation. VistaJet, the world's second largest private jet operator, explicitly built its entire business around this tier. They don't chase occasional flyers. Their program targets clients who fly at least 100 hours a year and sign 3-year agreements. In 2024, VistaJet reported a 20% increase in program members, with long-term contract members now accounting for the majority of revenue. When you lock in a high-hour whale on a multi-year subscription, you have effectively pre-sold your most expensive asset class 3 years into the future. The math becomes a lot more interesting. And then there's Wheels Up. Wheels Up launched in 2013, founded by Kenny Dichter with a genuinely clever idea: democratize private aviation. Instead of selling fractional shares worth millions, they sold memberships starting at $17,500 a year, giving middle-market professionals access to a fleet of King Air 350i turboprops. In 2021, they went public on the New York Stock Exchange at a valuation of $2.83 billion. By mid-2023, the stock had fallen from $11 to 40 cents. The company had lost $555 million in a single year on $1.5 billion in revenue. Nearly $1 billion in customer flight credits were sitting in accounts that the company may not have had the cash to honor. On August 15, 2023, Wheels Up issued a stock market warning that it might not survive without outside funding. Delta Airlines, which had held a 20% stake, stepped in and led a $500 million rescue package, eventually taking 95% ownership for a fraction of what the company had been worth 2 years earlier. What went wrong? Wheels Up had built a low-price, high-volume model in a business with enormous fixed costs. Every flight they added increased the cost base. Fuel prices spiked. Post-pandemic demand normalized, and the gap between what they were charging and what it actually cost to operate widened into a chasm they could not close. They were making losses on both a net and EBITDA basis at the same time. The common theme, as one industry analyst put it, was that they had never made a dime. VistaJet nearly hit the same wall from a different direction. Thomas Flohr, the Swiss billionaire who founded VistaJet in 2004, spent the 2010s buying up competitors: Air Hamburg, JetEdge, XO. By 2023, VistaJet operated 360 jets, flying to 1,900 airports in 96% of the world's countries. Revenue had grown from $678 million to $2.49 billion in just a few years. But the Financial Times, reviewing bond disclosures, found that the company had accumulated $436 million in net losses over 4 years. Total debt had doubled to $4.4 billion, and cash on hand had fallen to $134 million, while the company was sitting on $831 million in prepaid customer flights. The auditor issued a going concern warning. Floor disputed the picture, arguing the losses reflected a conservative depreciation schedule on aircraft rather than operational failure. In 2024, Vista raised $600 million in equity and a further $700 million in an oversubscribed bond offering, and the company posted strong membership growth. The legal case against Floor himself was later dismissed. But the episode exposed the razor edge this business operates on. When you are holding hundreds of millions in customer deposits against a balance sheet carrying billions in debt, any shock, a credit rating downgrade, a lessor pulling aircraft, or a major operator refusing credit terms can cascade fast. So let's run the numbers honestly. Scenario 1. Small charter operator, 3 aircraft fleet of mid-sized jets, Hawker 800s or Cessna Citation XLS. Acquisition cost, $7 to $9 million total. Annual fixed costs across the fleet, about $2.4 million. At 70% utilization, with an average charter rate of $4,500 an hour, annual revenue lands around $3.6 million. Net profit, after variable costs, maintenance reserves, and management overhead, is somewhere between $200,000 and $400,000. Your payback period is 15 to 20 years, assuming nothing breaks, nothing changes, and the market does not move. This is a lifestyle business, not a wealth builder. Most small operators are managing the costs of the jets they love, not building empires. Scenario 2. Mid-sized fractional operator with 50 aircraft, heavy jets, running a legitimate fractional program. Fractional shares at $2 to $4 million each across the fleet represent $80 to $120 million in upfront capital raised from customers before you fly them once. Hourly rates on top generate another $40 to $60 million annually. Management fees, monthly overheads, and ancillary revenue push total revenue past $200 million. Gross margins on a well-run fractional business are 25 to 40%. Net margin after overhead, crew costs, depreciation, and financing is typically 5 to 15%. That is $10 to $30 million in net profit annually on a $200 million book. The real multiple is not on your jets. It is on your float. The operator sitting on $150 million in pre-purchased hours has a business that looks almost nothing like an aviation company from the inside. So if you do decide to start a private jet company, just remember the one thing every failed operator forgot. The passengers are buying freedom from commercial aviation. You're not. You still have to pay for the fuel, the crews, the hangars, the engines, and every hour a $40 million aircraft sits on a tarmac making you nothing. The business doesn't make money because flying is glamorous. It makes money because the people who can afford to fly this way will pay almost anything to never check a bag again. Just make sure they're paying you before they board, not after.